Molt bon dia. Benvingudes i benvinguts a aquest claustre que constitueixo avui, dia 23 d'octubre del 2012, per tal d'investir doctora Honoris Causa a la senyora Hanna Damásio. Declaro oberta la sessió i cedeixo la paraula al doctor Llorenç Valverde, secretari general de la Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, que llegirà l'acord del comitè de direcció executiu per qual es concedeix el títol de doctora Honoris Causa a la professora Hanna Damásio.
Acord del Comitè de Direcció Executiu de la Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, mitjançant el qual s'investeix doctora honoris causa la senyora Hanna Damásio. El Comitè de Direcció Executiu de la Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, en la sessió ordinària que va tenir lloc a Barcelona el dia 27 de gener de 2012, va acordar per unanimitat investir doctora honoris causa la senyora Hanna Damásio. Aquesta és la més alta distinció acadèmica concedida a títol d'honor a una persona en reconeixement dels seus mèrits i de la seva labor. University Professor de Psicologia i Neurociència i directora del Dornsife Neuroimaging Center de la University of Southern California, és una pionera reconeguda mundialment en la utilització de les tecnologies digitals d'imatge en l'estudi, diagnòstic i ensenyament sobre les lesions cerebrals. L'any 1994, Oxford University Press li va publicar el primer atles del servei basat en imatges obtingudes per tomografia axial computada, que a les diverses reedicions es considera un test bàsic a les facultats de medicina de tot el món. Hanna Damásio simbolitza l'esperit d'innovació tecnològica al servei de la recerca, l'educació i el benestar de les persones, que és a la base del projecte científic i educatiu de la Universitat Oberta de Catalunya. Per tot això i més, el Comitè de Direcció Executiva de la UOC acorda investir la senyora Hanna Damásio doctora honoris causa de la Universitat Oberta de Catalunya. Com a secretari general de la UOC, m'escau donar fe d'aquest acord amb el corresponent vistiplau de la rectora magnífica de la UOC. Barcelona, 27 de gener de 2012.
Moltes gràcies i ara demano al padrí, el doctor Manuel Castells, que vagi a cercar a la doctorant i l'acompanyi fins a aquesta sala. Arriba.
Com que vos chorarei meu triste fado, que em tão dura paixão me sepultou, que mora não seja dor, que me deixou o tempo, que me deixou o tempo, alegria do passado, alegria do passado, mas chorar não se estima neste estado, aonde suspirar nunca aproveitou. Triste quero viver, pois se mudou em tristeza, pois se mudou em tristeza, alegria do passado, alegria do passado, de tanto mala causa e amor puro, devido a quem de mim tenho ausente, por quem a vida em vez dela aventuro, por quem a vida em vez dela aventuro, com que voz chorarei meu triste fado, que em tão dura paixão me sepultou, que mor não seja a dor que me deixou o tempo, que me deixou o tempo do meu bem desenganado, do meu bem desenganado, desenganado.
El padrí, doctor Castells, llegirà ara la laudatio.
Bon dia. La Universitat Oberta de Catalunya is proud today of bestowing a doctorate honoris causa, our highest academic distinction, upon Professor Hanna Damásio, one of the most important neuroscientists of our time, an extraordinary scientific innovator who has opened the door for the rigorous study of the living brain, therefore allowing us to lift the veil of mystery of the old question about the meaning of being human. Her decisive contributions to neuroscience revolve around the scientific passion that she has for brain anatomy. Detecting early on in the 1970s the possibilities offered by the development of new radiological technologies, Hanna Damásio investigated neuroanatomy with computerized X-ray tomographic scans. Later, as magnetic resonance imaging was made available, she perfected this new field of neuroscience and defined its contour in her classic book, Human Brain Anatomy in Computerized Images, published by Oxford University Press in 1995 and in its second updated edition in 2005. This book, studied in schools of medicine and psychology departments around the world, is considered to be the first atlas of the brain based on computerized images. She also pioneered the lesion method to study the brain, a major breakthrough in neuroscience. Being a practicing neuroscientist as well as a neurologist, she knew that one of the most effective approaches to investigate the human mind was to examine patients who had suffered brain lesions, searching for correlations between the results of acquired brain damage and behavioral changes. By applying the new knowledge of computerized neuroanatomy to systematic studies involving many brain damaged patients, she was able to revitalize the lesion method in the 1980s and open the way for many discoveries on the brain substrates of language, memory, emotion, and decision-making, producing several studies that have become foundational for the current stream of research known as social neuroscience. The first systematic formulation of her lesion method to study the brain came in her co-author award-winning book, Lesion Analysis in Neuropsychology, published in 1989 by Oxford University Press. She continues to produce new discoveries in this area as those reported in her recent co-author article, Understanding Otherness, the Neural Basis of Action, Comprehension, and Brain Empathy in a Congenital Amputee, published in the journal Cerebral Cortex in 2011. What characterizes Hanna Damásio's work is her extreme methodological rigor. She does draw substantial inferences that illuminate the workings of the human mind, but never departs from a careful, detailed observation of her findings. She always grounds her analysis on studies using functional imaging and other techniques. And she continues to work on the development of new imaging technologies in collaboration with engineering colleagues. Hanna Damásio's scientific production is nothing short of extraordinary, not only in quality, but in quantity. In addition to the two fundamental books mentioned above and other co-author books, she has published 213 articles in major scientific journals of the caliber of Nature, Science, Brain, or Journal of Neuroscience, as well as dozens of peer-reviewed research abstracts. Her scientific endeavor has taken her to many cities and countries, from her native Lisbon to the University of Iowa, a leading medical school in the United States, and to the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. She's a medical doctor, a graduate from the University of Lisbon Medical School, where she was an intern and a resident at the University Hospital. She studied and researched also in Boston's Aphasia Research Center, in Columbia University in New York, in the National Hospital for Nervous Diseases in London, and in the Princess Margaret Migraine Clinic in London. She was appointed professor and then distinguished professor of neurology at the University of Iowa in 1985, where she directed the Laboratory for Neuroimaging and Human Neuroanatomy. In 2005, she joined the University of Southern California, Los Angeles, where she is currently university professor, the highest position in the university, as well as the Dana Dornsife Professor of Neuroscience and Professor of Psychology, Neuroscience, and Neurology. She directs the Dornsife Imaging Center at the University of Southern California, a center dedicated to elucidating the neurobiology of mind and behavior, the health and disease, using the most advanced brain imaging technology. The center works closely with the Brain and Creativity Institute at the University of Southern California, an institute whose research is focused on understanding the brain basis of social behavior. By the way, creativity is at heart of Hanna Damásio's work and life, because in addition to being a towering figure in neuroscience, she's also an artist, having drawn, painted, and sculpted over the years. She is indeed a Renaissance woman. Professor Hanna Damásio has received numerous distinctions and honors, including several honorary doctorates, among which one conferred by the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, one of the leading engineering schools in Europe, an expression of the prestige of Hanna Damásio's work in the technological community. Her research has been consistently supported by grants from the US National Science Foundation for over 2 decades. In acknowledging the importance of the contribution of Hanna Damásio, our university is not simply honoring a great scientist. We recognize the importance of her work for our specific field of education and research, and we feel close to her style of intellectual innovation. This is because the discoveries of Hanna Damásio have direct and substantial implications for the learning processes at the heart of our mission. This can actually be documented, for instance, in her co-author text, Social Conduct, Neurobiology and Education, in her contribution to the collective volume Learning in the Global Era, published by the University of California Press in 2007. Furthermore, the UOC was founded at the crossroads of technological innovation and educational innovation, using the new information and communication technologies to develop new possibilities of learning and understanding. This is similar to the project that Hanna Damásio conceived and then put into practice to use the new digital technologies to expand the frontiers of knowledge about the human mind. The better we know the human mind, and the more we create a virtuous feedback loop between information technology and the technology of information, the more we will advance in the transformation of education in the digital age. In this difficult but essential mission, the discoveries, methodology, and scientific example of Hanna Damásio will be of utmost help and meaningful inspiration for UOC's endeavor. For this, we thank you, Hanna, for your teaching and for your willingness to honor us by letting us to honor you. Welcome to our community.
And now I would like to invite Dr. Hanna Damásio to approach the presidency. As per the solemn decision of the Governing Council of the Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, you are hereby being awarded the title of Honorary Doctor in recognition and acknowledgement of your accomplishments. It is for this reason that by the authority invested upon me, I award you this title and this medal. Receive the ring, which is traditionally awarded in this venerable ceremony as a sign of the privilege of being able to sign and seal those judgments, articles, and edicts pertaining to your science and profession. Also receive these white gloves, symbol of purity to protect your hands. Both the ring and the gloves are signs of your distinguished standing. As you are now a distinguished member of this university, receive, on behalf of its Senate, a brotherly embrace for those who are grateful and honored to be your brethren and colleagues. Té la paraula la doctora Hanna Damásio. Sempre em passa cada cerimònia.
Numa casa portuguesa fica bem, pão e vinho sobre a mesa. E se à porta humildemente bate alguém, senta-se à mesa com a gente. Fica bem esta franqueza, fica bem, que o povo nunca desmente. A alegria da pobreza está nesta grande riqueza de dar e ficar contente. Quatro paredes caiadas, um cheirinho alecrim, um cacho de uvas doiradas, duas rosas no jardim, um São José de azulejo, mais o sol da primavera. Uma promessa de beijos, dois braços à minha espera. É uma casa portuguesa, com certeza, é com certeza uma casa portuguesa. No conforto pobrezinho do meu lar, há fartura de carinho, e a cortina da janela é o luar, mas o sol que bate nela. Basta pouco, pouquinho para alegrar uma existência singela. E há só amor, pão e vinho, e um caldo verde, verdinho, a fumegar na tigela. Quatro paredes caiadas, um cheirinho alecrim, um cacho de uvas doiradas, duas rosas num jardim, um São José de azulejo, mais o sol da primavera. Uma promessa de beijos, dois braços à minha espera. É uma casa portuguesa, com certeza, é com certeza uma casa portuguesa. Lara, larara, larara, larara. Um São José de azulejo, mais o sol da primavera. Uma promessa de beijos, dois braços à minha espera. É uma casa portuguesa, com certeza, é com certeza uma casa portuguesa. É uma casa portuguesa, com certeza, e é com certeza uma casa portuguesa.
Ara sí, té la paraula la doctora Hanna Damásio.
Director Tubella, the Executive Committee of the University, dear Professor Castells, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the degree you have given me. I do feel very honored. And thank you, Manuel, for your kind words. You have also given me the opportunity of talking briefly about my work, and I thought of telling you how it relates to the adventures of modern science. In the first part of the 20th century, the public's mind was captivated by particle physics. After the Second World War, two major developments demanded attention. The invention of the computer, which opened the way to the digital revolution, and the discovery of the structure of the DNA, which paved the way for modern biology. The last quarter of the 20th century, however, belongs to a quieter development and whose scale and consequences are only now becoming apparent. This development had to do with the attempt to understand how the brain produces mind and behavior, something that has been known now as cognitive neuroscience. The attempt had begun a century before, so in the 19th century, led by European neurologists and psychiatrists from the Iberian Peninsula to Scandinavia and the British Isles. And in spite of some important results, however, the effort had been gradually abandoned. There was one very simple reason for this failure: the lack of technical power. And Sigmund Freud is a good example of the problem. Freud started as a neurologist, interested in brain and language and ideas, and then rapidly moved to psychology and psychiatry to study behavior instead of studying the brain. This is a good example because he realized, and that was a fact, that without new and probing techniques elucidating the connection between brain and mind, or brain and behavior, would have to wait. In keeping with the development of technical power to analyze the human brain, and with the complexity of the problem itself, the revolution of cognitive neuroscience did not begin with a spectacular bang like the discovery of DNA. It grew by bits and pieces, slowly, and only picked up speed in the 1990s and the beginning of the present century. From my perspective, however, the revolution came just in time, because I had the good fortune of witnessing many of its developments, quite closely actually, and of being involved in their application. I have also been fortunate to participate in exciting discoveries that were only possible because of the availability of new techniques. Let me give you just a few examples. Brains are made up of individual cells, and these are really the cells that Ramon y Cajal so beautifully described and drew, as you can see in this Cajal drawings here. Now, in the human brain, there are trillions of these cells. And these cells that we call the neurons. And it is by now apparent that all mind processes and behaviors are produced by cooperation of many of these neurons, not by one neuron alone, ever, but as well not by all neurons together. In effect, the key to understanding the secrets of brain mechanisms leading to behavior and mind, sits in the mode of organization of the neurons, such that they can deliver different functions. Neurons are organized to form neural tissues, and neural tissues are grouped together in regions and nuclei. And many of these are actually visible with the naked eye, as we can see in this next image, where you have a brain at autopsy, and circled in red, you have the colliculi, two very important nuclei on each side of the brain, so I should say 4 of them. And these, of course, can then be seen under the microscope and the structure analyzed under the microscope. And the structure of the colliculi or of other nuclei is quite different from the structure of the brain cortex. For over a century, the principal way of investigating higher brain function relied on a correlation between an area of the brain that was damaged and the defect of mind or behavior that was developed, that a patient with a neurological disease would develop. This correlation could obviously only be confirmed at autopsy after the patient died. So in many instances, long after the first observation had been made. And this is, for instance, the case of Paul Brocard, who was the first one to relate a specific language deficit, an inability to express language, to an area of the brain that was damaged, as you can see in this brain of the first patient of Brocard that has a lesion in the first and the inferior frontal gyrus. Another I want to mention one more step before I go to what Manuel described as the tools I have used mostly in my research. And that is a tool developed by another pioneer neuroscientist from the Iberian Peninsula, this time from Portugal, the Portuguese neurologist Egas Muniz, who actually grabbed the right way to go into brain structure. In 1928, he developed human cerebral angiography. Now, angiography does not show brain tissue. What angiography shows is brain vessels, and these brain vessels can be either displaced by a tumor or any space-occupying lesion, or they can be absent in case of a stroke. So we did not see actual brain tissue. What we see is a signature of something happening in brain tissue. And here you have the very first human angiography done in a living subject, not in the cadaver. This is the very first angiography. And I don't know if you can see, but there are these dark lines that correspond to the vessels, and what we call the Sylvian vessels are displaced upward. And this patient died sometime after, not too long, and actually this allowed Muniz to see that, in fact, what he had diagnosed as a tumor in the temporal lobe displacing the vessels was actually what had happened. And you see now circled in red the tumor at autopsy that corresponds exactly to the displacement of vessels in Muniz's angiography. Now, angiography has not been completely abandoned. It has still been, and is still on occasion, used. And as you can see in this modern example, the quality is completely different. We actually can see, we can identify all the vessels in the human brain. But even today, it's still an invasive procedure. And it has been replaced to a great extent by magnetic resonance angiography, which is much safer and much less invasive and gives as good an image, or sometimes considered even better than classical angiography. I began my training as a neurologist and neuroscientist in Lisbon. Manuel told you that already. And actually in the institution where cerebral angiography was developed. And one of my early mentors was Almeida Lima, who, as a very young neurosurgeon, had done that very first angiography with Egas Muniz that I just showed you. So I was very happy to belong to that tradition. But even so, I was acutely aware of its limitations. From the point of view of clinical diagnosis, angiography was indeed a revolutionary development. But scientifically, it was not yet what we needed, because it didn't show the brain. It showed something as a proxy to the brain. However, in the early 70s, computerized axial tomography, now known as CAT scanning or CT scanning, was invented. It was just the beginning, but even so, my career had a complete new beginning, and it changed completely the possibilities and outlook I had for the future. Let me show you some of these first images that many of you have never seen, because you come from a time where the images are much better. But this was an absolutely exciting image for us. You see the ventricles. Those can be recognized easily. And then you have this amorphous gray speckled stuff around. That is the brain. Not much to see, but still it's brain. However, this patient had a stroke in the left occipital lobe. And you can see this stroke perfectly. That black mass that you see on the right-hand side of the image at the bottom corresponds to a stroke in the occipital lobe that we could easily relate to a specific deficit that this patient had, which was alexia in the good field, and the patient was alive. The patient was not dead. Now, a bare 10 years later, you see an image that is still not very good, but you already see ventricles. You can even imagine where the thalamus is and where the caudate sits and the lenticular nucleus. And you have another, this is another patient with a stroke in the left occipital lobe. And this patient died shortly after. And it actually showed us that what we were watching in the scan corresponded, in fact, to the stroke that was visible at autopsy. CT scan continued development, and now you have a CT scan from, in the upper row, from 1996, where you see cortex, you see white matter, everything is very nicely seen. But in the early 80s, magnetic resonance was discovered. Or magnetic resonance was applied to the brain, that's more correct, not discovered, but applied to brain imaging. And in the lower row, what you have is a magnetic resonance from 2010, again, a patient with a left occipital lobe infarct. And if you look at that image, these images actually are, I would say, at least as good at the autopsy specimen that you saw before. But you could even say that it's better, because the detail of the area of damage and the cortex around is more easily seen in these images than in the autopsy brain. So I would say that the dream of studying human neuroanatomy in the living with considerable precision and, very importantly, in a non-invasive fashion, non-harmful, has really become reality. Now, with the modern images of magnetic resonance that we can obtain in thin cuts and consecutive cuts, we can now reconstruct them in 3 dimensions at the computer screen. And I'm going to show you images that were obtained or were manipulated with BrainVox, a program that was developed in the early 90s in collaboration with engineer colleagues of mine. And that allows, obviously, the reconstruction, and the reconstruction of the slices will show you the scalp. But we can take away the scalp and make visible the hemispheres, cerebellum and brainstem, And in this particular case, I'm going to take away the cerebellum and the brainstem, and you will see in a moment why. And after having just the two hemispheres, I can split the hemispheres across the corpus callosum, the white matter fiber tract that combines the two hemispheres, turn it around, and you see that in the lower portion of the left hemisphere, particularly if I turn it around, we have the stroke. Now, in 3 dimensions, the stroke that I was showing you first in axial slices and then in a sequence of coronal slices. And this certainly is very evident, very clear, and better than at an autopsy, because I can cut this brain at the computer screen in whichever direction I want. I cannot do that at the autopsy table. It's the real thing, but you decide to cut in one way and it's cut, it's cut. You can't put it together. Here, you can just put it together and start all over again. So I would see this as a definite advantage. Now, having this possibility of reconstructing the brain in 3 dimensions also allows us to sorry, I went back, my fault. Also allows us to identify and mark all the sulci in the human brain. Using these sulci, it allows us to delineate the different gyri, and we can even go a step further and mark the approximate the limits of the cytoarchitectonic regions that, for instance, reach us from the work of Brodmann. Oh, another advantage of these modern methods is actually to vindicate some of the 19th century neuroscientists that may have made predictions but never saw if their predictions were correct or not. And I'm talking in this particular case of the case of Phineas Gage. Now, in 1984, John Harlow predicted that his patient, Phineas Gage, sustained damage to the prefrontal cortex as a bizarre accident, as a result of a bizarre accident in which an explosion had sent an iron bar through his skull. Harlow also said at that time that this deficit would be responsible for the deficits that he was seeing in his patient, and that the patient would not have had any damage to language areas. But unfortunately for Harlow, Gage died and no autopsy was obtained. So Harlow's interpretation could never be verified nor denied. So in 1994, we decided to take the skull of Gage that is at the museum in Harvard, photograph it, obtain a CT scan of that skull, do several measurements of the skull, of the holes, of the entry hole and the exit hole in the skull, and then deform a modern CT scan to fit the dimensions of Gage, mark all the distances to the potential holes, and model several possibilities of center of rods. This rod was really 6 inches wide. It was a huge piece of iron. But so we modeled the center, and once we had several possibilities for the center, we could also, using the portions of the bony structures that were intact in the skull of Phineas, as well as those that were damaged, to narrow down the possibilities of that iron scan, followed by putting inside that deformed skull a 3D reconstructed brain that conformed to the measurements of Phineas' brain, and see, in fact, that the damage did not affect the language areas marked there in yellow, and that it went into the prefrontal cortex, from the orbital cortex to the upper, destroying prefrontal cortex and, very importantly, the white matter below it. something that Harlow had very correctly predicted. Now today, we can go beyond just structural imaging, and we can look into the brain and look at the brain in function. And the oldest method to do so is positron emission tomography. I'm going to show you just two images of a study that we published in 2000, which is really one of the first studies that addressed the neural underpinnings, not of emotion itself, but of feeling of the emotion. So we had subjects that were in the scanner recalling events that created strong emotions, and when they were feeling the emotion, they would let us know, and we obtained the scan. And that is, for instance, what is happening when the subject is feeling sadness. You see that concentrate on the red dots, those correspond to activations. There are several, but we were particularly interested in the insula that you see is activated bilaterally and very strongly so. Now the insula has, in the meantime, in happiness, the same thing happens, but in a different pattern, not exactly in the same pattern. And the insula has, in the meantime, really become one very important substrate for the study of feelings. Now, more recently, positron emission tomography has been supplanted by functional magnetic resonance, or FMR, which is a much less invasive and easier technique to use. And in functional with FMR, I want to show you a normal subject who, while in the scanner, was performing the IGT, the Iowa gambling task. And I'm going to show you, in this case, slices that are taken sideways, which is not the most common way to look at that. You see the line indicating where this first slice is, very, very much on the surface. And these slices are going to move towards the left. I'm going to show you only the left hemisphere. I want you to concentrate on the appearance of areas that are intense red and yellow in the slices that are now going very rapidly towards the midline. You see, first we don't see anything, but now we're beginning to see some activation, and this activation is in the mesial portion of the frontal lobe, in the prefrontal cortices. And once again, this is an area that now has been very strongly related to decision-making and planning. Now, as Manuel said, my passion is really anatomy. I'm not putting aside function. I think function is important and it's very exciting. However, function without underlying structure doesn't work. The function comes from an underlying structure. So I want to finish with showing you a recent development that helps us visualize the connectivity of the different regions of the brain. What we're really doing is study the pathways in the brain formed by the neural connections across different brain regions. And of course, what I'm talking about is the fusion MR. Let us look at the brain from the front. I'm going to make this brain disappear and show you the underlying mass of connectivity. These fibers, they don't come in color, but for ease of interpretation, we color them and we do a directional color, so that red means across, blue means up and down, and green makes front and back. You have the complete brain on the left-hand side corner, because I'm going to turn this complex mess of connections in the direction of the arrow so that you get a better view of the whole thing. The brain is moving in the same direction to facilitate knowledge of where we are. And now that we're looking at it from the left-hand side, I'm going to turn it down. I want to look at it from straight above. And you saw the corpus callosum in that first reconstruction that I showed you. What I'm going to do now is introduce as a region of interest the corpus callosum in this mess of fiber tracks. It's going to appear in yellow, and the program is going to get rid of all fibers that are not crossing the callosum. So right now what you see is the callosum with all the fibers connecting. Now, I could speak for hours. I know that that is not the idea, but you can imagine that with this technique, we can now study connections across the brain in different regions. But let me finish in conclusion with just a few statements. It's obvious that powerful techniques are essential. But it's also obvious that they cannot be expected to do the job alone. We do need to have sound theory, well-controlled hypothesis, careful experimental design, and it is, of course, the interpretation of the facts that we obtain that has to be a wise interpretation. Otherwise, we can definitely make fools of ourselves. The ultimate consequence of all of the technical progress is to permit at long last a fruitful meeting ground. It's a meeting ground that will allow cognitive neuroscience meeting with social sciences, political science, economics, humanities. And all of these will obviously connect with relevant aspects of medicine, neurology, psychiatry, and pediatrics. Thank you very much.
Lisboa já tem sol, mas cheira a lua quando nasce a madrugada sorrateira e o primeiro elétrico da rua ai, faz coro com as chinelas da ribeira. Se chove, gira a terra prometida, procissões têm um cheiro rosmaninho. Na tasca da viela mais escondida, cheira a iscas com elas e a vinho. Um craveiro numa água furtada, cheira bem, cheira a Lisboa. Uma rosa a florir na tapada, ai, cheira bem, cheira a Lisboa. A fragata que se ergue na proa, a varina que teima em passar, cheiram bem porque são de Lisboa. Lisboa tem cheiros de flores e de mar. Lisboa cheira aos cafés do Rocio e o fado cheira sempre a solidão. Cheira a castanha assada se está frio, cheira a fruta madura quando é verão. Nos lábios tem um cheiro do sorriso, manjerico tem um cheiro de cantiga. E os rapazes perdem o juízo quando lhes dá um cheirinho a rapariga. Um craveiro numa água furtada, cheira bem, cheira a Lisboa. Uma rosa a florir na tapada, ai, cheira bem, cheira a Lisboa. A fragata que se ergue na proa, a varina que teima em passar, cheiram bem porque são de Lisboa. Lisboa tem cheiros de flores e de amor. Cheira bem, cheira a Lisboa. Cheira bem, cheira a Lisboa. A fragata que se ergue na proa, a varina que teima em passar, cheiram bem porque são de Lisboa. Lisboa tem cheiros de flores e de mar.
Interactivitat, interconnexió, xarxes, cooperació, són paraules molt antigues, però que des de fa encara no 10 anys ens evoquen imatges absolutament inèdites. He de dir que sempre m'havia fascinat el suport mutu del príncep Kropotkin, que vaig llegir a la biblioteca del meu avi quan era un adolescent. Els meus col·laboradors ho saben perquè els hi cito sovint. Fins i tot em penso que els he arribat a regalar còpies digitals. Potser per això em vaig deixar seduir tant pel concepte de les xarxes. Permeteu-me una cita. No fa molt el món, no és de Kropotkin, és una altra, però dic que és cita perquè llegeixo. No fa molt el món era babau i nosaltres érem llestos, però el món assistit pels ordinadors s'ha tornat molt llest i a un ritme molt més ràpid del que prenem nosaltres. Molt aviat la nostra intel·ligència tecnològica col·lectiva superarà les intel·ligències orgàniques individuals, tant en velocitat com en integració. Això ho escrivia el professor de Kerkhoff en el seu llibre La pell de la cultura, publicat l'any 1995. Amb el seu optimisme característic, seguia. Serà interessant veure com aquesta organització cognitiva unificada s'ocuparà del medi ambient i de la pobresa i quins criteris dictarà per a l'enginyeria genètica. Ara com ara, però, relaxem-nos, deia. Encara no ha arribat el moment. On som 17 anys més tard? Ha arribat el moment de totes aquestes coses que ell deia? Ara sabem, per exemple, que la nostra intel·ligència tecnològica no és col·lectiva, sinó més aviat connectada o connectiva, com en vulgueu dir. També sabem que les sinergies de la comunicació a la xarxa han fet que la xarxa hagi esdevingut el mitjà de comunicació per excel·lència. Interactivitat, hipertextualitat i connectivitat han generat nous hàbits cognitius socials i personals. De fet, les tecnologies de la informació i la comunicació i les xarxes que aquestes tecnologies ajuden a crear estan funcionant en la nostra ment d'una manera molt més àmplia del que en el seu moment van aconseguir els llibres o la mateixa televisió. Les eines que ajuden als nostres processos mentals en el nostre entorn multimèdia poden modelar el nostre pensament d'una manera molt més completa del que va fer mai la televisió. La pantalla dels nostres ordinadors es transforma en l'espai on la imaginació i la memòria pròpies es troben amb la memòria i la imaginació de molta gent. Autors tan diversos com Sherry Turkle o James Olds fan referència a la fascinant teoria connectivista de la ment, que hem pogut veure aquí dibuixada. Segons aquesta teoria, informació és un node i coneixement és una connexió. A través de les lents connectivistes, afirma Olds, l'ego podria ser reconstruït com un sistema distribuït. La consciència podria ser vista com un artifici tècnic mitjançant el qual el cervell es representa per a si mateix les seves pròpies elaboracions. Olds el compara amb el monitor d'un ordinador, amb la pantalla accentuant la seva qualitat passiva. Una altra investigadora neuroètica, Cathinka Evers, diu que els humans, a diferència de la resta de mamífers, naixem amb un cervell inacabat i passem gran part de la nostra vida per desenvolupar-lo. La xarxa és, per definició, un mitjà col·lectiu i connectiu, i en la societat xarxa el grau de col·laboració entre les ments individuals creix de manera exponencial, produint un efecte semblant a l'efecte papallona de Lorentz, que té aquest nom, coneixeu perfectament, d'un antic proverbi xinès que diu que en el moviment de les ales d'una papallona es pot percebre i provocar efectes a l'altra banda del món. L'efecte papallona és una de les característiques del comportament d'un sistema caòtic, molt similar al sistema de les xarxes, en què les variables canvien i es transformen de manera complexa i autoorganitzada. L'increment de les interaccions humanes, siguin personals, socials o institucionals a través de les xarxes, està concentrant i augmentant el poder de nosaltres i dona sentit a l'antic proverbi, aquest cop japonès, que diu que cap de nosaltres és tan intel·ligent com tots nosaltres. O dit d'una altra manera, que nosaltres som més intel·ligents que jo. Les paraules clau avui són connectivitat, col·laboració i cooperació entre iguals. A la societat xarxa compartim i col·laborem o desapareixem. Això és difícil d'entendre tant a nivell individual com col·lectiu, però comencem a tenir múltiples exemples que ens ho demostren. Es tracta d'un canvi de paradigma, d'un nou mode de producció que confia allò que és col·lectiu a la creació de valor, sigui en el camp econòmic, cultural o social. Avui cooperar és rentable i, a més de produir valor, és gratis. La literatura sobre l'anatomia i l'articulació de la societat xarxa inclou aproximacions teòriques de disciplines com la neurociència o com la física. El físic Fritjof Capra defineix estar alfabetitzat ecològicament com entendre els principis organitzatius dels ecosistemes i utilitzar-los com a model per crear comunitats humanes sostenibles. Capra assenyala 5 grans principis ecoalfabetitzadors: interdependència o també independència connectada, flexibilitat, diversitat, cooperació i biomimesis. El terme biomimesis és la tendència a imitar, com sabeu, la natura a l'hora de reconstruir els sistemes socials. Internet està desenvolupant connexions exponencials com ho fa un cervell en ple procés d'aprenentatge. Tal com succeeix en el sistema neurobiològic d'un organisme, la xarxa té la necessitat d'evolucionar, d'establir més contactes i d'establir més connexions. Aquest aspecte és precisament allò que la defineix. El sistema nerviós no és rígid, sinó que es transforma i evoluciona gràcies a interaccions múltiples i canviants. És com si la xarxa estigués descobrint una manera d'imitar el cos físic i biològic dins de l'àmbit social. En aquest sentit, Acte i Memoria, en el seu Topological Relationships Between Brain and Social Networks, publicat el 2007, demostren similituds topològiques entre el cervell i les xarxes socials. Ambdós sistemes comparteixen principis similars d'organització i un valor comú, la reciprocitat. Ambdós aprenen i ambdós s'autocorregeixen. És curiós per observar que quan hi ha algun intent de comparar el funcionament del cervell i el funcionament dels ordinadors, sempre es produeix una certa incomoditat. Segurament perquè aquest és un tema que ha generat molts debats i moltes controvèrsies, però la força de les controvèrsies fa que sigui un tema recurrent. He llegit en algun lloc, i demano disculpes a la professora Damásio, però m'he gosadia de parlar del cervell, que aquest adquireix el seu poder no tant de la velocitat dels seus interruptors individuals, sinó de la manera en què es connecten els uns amb els altres. De fet, és la interconnexió d'aquestes neurones la que atorga al cervell la facultat de reconèixer patrons i, per tant, d'aprendre. Però, contràriament al que succeeix amb els ordinadors, les xarxes neuronals aprenen dels seus errors. Tenim una certa tendència a comparar-nos amb els ordinadors i potser en aquesta tendència radica la incomoditat que citava fa un moment. Tendim a creure que el nostre cervell no és prou ràpid, el que segurament és veritat, però potser oblidem que el nostre cervell no té cap necessitat de ser ràpid, sinó intel·ligent, ben integrat i, sobretot, ben connectat. En tot cas, la comunitat UOC, investigadora de les múltiples disciplines, des de les seves múltiples disciplines d'internet i de les xarxes, sap que el ciberespai no és neutral, que no té un límit clar, que no és estable ni centralitzat, que és un espai orgànic en moviment continu i que es comporta com un sistema autoorganitzat. Sap també que internet és el primer mitjà simultàniament oral, visual i escrit, públic i privat, individual i col·lectiu, i que la connexió entre element privat i element col·lectiva s'està produint mitjançant xarxes obertes i connectades a nivell global. Això provoca una consciència del temps real, temps virtual, temps personal o temps social. Potser per això el que està passant és més fàcil de sentir que de veure. Ens falta segurament aquest poder tècnic o powerful technique del qual parlava la doctora Damásio tant a l'inici de la seva intervenció, quan explicava per què Freud es va dedicar més a la ment que al cervell, com ara al final en les seves conclusions. Tant de bo ella pogués fer una aportació tan important a la visualització del que passa a internet com el que ha fet per a la visualització del que passa al cervell. En tot cas, agraeixo les seves darreres paraules en la pantalla de les conclusions, quan ha afirmat la necessitat que les neurociències col·laborin amb les ciències socials, econòmiques i aspectes de la medicina, neurologia, psiquiatria i pediatria. I per acabar, jo afegiria que cada cop més caldria un diàleg entre la comunitat neurocientífica i la comunitat educativa per arribar a entendre, ja sabeu que aquesta és la meva obsessió, els grans canvis culturals i de comportament que implica l'impacte de les tecnologies de la informació i la comunicació a l'educació. Ja no només en la creació, difusió i assimilació de coneixement, sinó en les vides quotidianes de les persones. Potser ara que la comunitat UOC té l'enorme privilegi de comptar entre els seus membres amb la professora Hanna Damásio, això serà més fàcil. En tot cas, la concessió de la més alta distinció acadèmica a la professora Damásio vol ser l'expressió de la nostra admiració i del nostre respecte. I per concloure aquest acte, us demano que ens posem tots dempeus per escoltar junts l'himne Gaudeamus Igitur. Gràcies per la vostra assistència.